And this workshop is recorded, just so everyone knows.
Yeah. We will cover from everything from setting up masters to textiles to how to use masters in a smooth way. I mean, I hope by the end, if you've got Affinity, you will be able to go away and make a book. Yeah, should be able to. And I really don't mind getting messaged by at any time with questions. So, you know, feel free to message me after the class. I will happily answer questions. The channel goes live not like immediately, but
It's at the
as
end
to
of the
where the
month.
link is, I'm not 100% certain. Yeah, at the end of Binderary, they put up the channel, so hopefully you'll be able to get it then. Because it's a private channel, you can't, you know, you won't find it by searching YouTube itself. Wow. This is definitely the biggest class I've ever taught, to be honest, in any format. No, I'm afraid I've only used the iPad version kind of to do one book. But there are good tutorials out there for using the iPad version. The person I've learned the most about Affinity from is a woman called Elaine Giles, who is not employed by Affinity, but she's worked in the industry for ages and she uses Affinity a lot and she's very she likes it a lot and she really knows a lot and she's a very, very good teacher. She tends to do kind of long live streams, which then are recorded. And she really is a very deep dive teacher and not, yeah, she's a sort of middle-aged English woman who really does teach well. So she has a tutorial on using the iPad version, which I found very helpful, although I personally don't actually like using the iPad version very much. But I have managed to make one book on it. I mean, it's perfectly doable. And particularly like if you have a pencil, then I think you'd find it a lot simpler than I did just poking with my finger on my quite old iPad. So yeah. And you know, Elaine Giles really does, she like goes deep into esoteric parts of the program. Like, you know, she'll do 2 hours on Footnotes or whatever. So you can really get a hell of a lot of info out of her tutorials. They're very good. Okay, one more minute and then we'll start, I think.
Yeah, I'll go ahead with the things that I need to say since we've just got a minute. Well, thank you for coming, everyone. This is going to be a wonderful tutorial for Affinity. I know I'm looking forward to it because I don't know how to use it. I'd like to, but I'm Holly, and Kate is going to be presenting to you today. A few things to cover first. This workshop is going to be recorded, just so you know. The recordings will be available at the end of the month, and they'll be on the private YouTube channel. And once those are all taken care of and uploaded, the mods will provide links to the channel and to the individual videos. So you can expect them in a few weeks. For this presentation, how we're going to handle questions, since Kate is not going to be able to really see the chat while she's working, go ahead and put your questions in the chat, or you can say them out loud if you like. I'm going to be reading out stuff from the chat. For the most part, I'm going to be keeping it to questions that are for what she's specifically working on, so we're not kind of jumping all over the place. But put any questions you have in the chat, and if they're kind of tangential or maybe, you know, something that happened previously, I might hold your questions until the end. So if I'm not reading out your question, it might just be because it's not exactly what's happening now, but we will get to it. And Katie's mentioned that she's happy to stay for Q&A time as long as it takes at the end. So we will get through the questions. Closed captions are on, though you might have to turn them on for yourself. So there is that option available for you. But with that, that's all I have to say. So I will turn it over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. I hope you can all understand my South African accent, and that I don't speak too fast. If I am gabbling, please ask me to slow down. I think I do tend to speak a little bit fast. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And I should be, you should be able to see whatever I've got on my screen. So what I'm going to do, you can see my, okay, so I happen to have two versions of Affinity Publisher, one of which I've modified to my own preferences. So I'm going to start off by working in my beta testing version, just because it's a kind of a clean version, as it were. So what I'm going to do is, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to start, I'll walk you through how to set up your screen and how to set up your documents. At a certain point, I'm going to swap over to my modified version because I will just find it easier to work in that. And then I will walk through actually making a document and inserting text into it and making a book. I mean, obviously we won't get right through a whole book, but I think we'll get quite far. So what I'm planning to do tonight is mostly quite basic stuff. And then the next session will cover more the kind of tips and tricks of getting a bit more intense with like handling color, footnotes, things like that. So if you want the full experience, the next session on Monday will cover that. Okay, so when you first launch Affinity, you'll get a screen that looks something like this. And you can launch a new document. Okay, so File, New, and it will give you a bunch of presets. I'm going to launch an A5. First thing I want to do is make sure that I have my DPI at 300 for optimal picture printing if we're going to print pictures. I'm going to say I want facing pages arranged horizontally, starting on the right. At the moment, I'm just going to have one page. Color, I will change to CMYK, and I'll just check my margins. Those are the standard margins. I might well tweak them, but let's go with that for now. Bleed is something that you don't need for printing on a home printer. It's a commercial printing thing. What it does is you can lay out your pictures to go beyond the edge of your document, and then they get trimmed off. But even if you're trimming at home, you don't really need bleed, because bleed puts the margins beyond the extent of your document page, because commercial printers print on bigger than standard paper. So don't worry about bleed. Okay, so I'm all set here, and I'm going to create. So what I get is one page, and you can see it displayed in the left-hand column. And then if I open the master pages, there's master A. That's the default. And if you look over at the right-hand side, you'll see how the default text styles display. Affinity has helpfully, or perhaps not quite so helpfully, provided a bunch of default text styles, and they laid out like this. They laid out to look like what they look like, which is kind of helpful, but not really. So if you want them to be laid out in a better way, go to the hamburger menu and go to show hierarchical. Okay, so then what that does is that it shows all the styles cascading down under where they're based on. Again, the other thing you want to do is not show samples. Okay, I just find that a lot less distracting to look at. So now you can see that body is like a base style, and it has several things based on it. Okay, so many of these are a style to do one thing, which actually you want to combine various things into. Like, for instance, if you want a drop cap style, you don't want a style that just makes a drop cap. You want it to do other things. So you could edit these provided styles, but to be honest, most of them are not useful in the form that they come to you. So when I've created my styles, I'll actually go and delete most of the provided styles. Okay, so to understand the way Affinity styles work, there are group styles, which are text styles on which other styles are based. And the default group style is base. And that's a style that all your other styles can work off. Then you have paragraph styles, which control how paragraphs look. So font, spacing, indents, hyphenation, all those kinds of things. But you can also add things like shading. You can put color on your text, all kinds of things. And then character styles, sorry, moment of forgetfulness. Character styles control things that only apply to single characters or to words, like emphasis and things like that. So it's important to understand the hierarchy, and also to understand that if you set up your styles correctly, you will be able to make quite wide-ranging changes with only very small number of clicks. So if you set all your styles, like body style, then you make a style that's body but without an indent. And then on that without an indent style, you base your style that you want to have a drop cap on. And then you make a style for a break character, and you base that on your no indent style. And if they're all based on the base group style, when you want to make a change to the font of the whole book, you literally can just click it once and it'll just cascade. So it is really worth understanding the way to logically set up styles. Okay, so the screen sharing button is exactly over where I want to go next. So I'm just going to quickly drag my, let me do that. I'm just going to, that'll be better. Okay, so up at the top, this windscreen wiper thing, don't know why it's like that, but anyway, preview mode. You want preview mode to be on more or less most of the time when you're designing, and toggle it off when you want to sort of look at what your page will look like. Preview mode allows you to see all kinds of things that you want to see while you're working. The next thing to see up here is the baseline grid. You want to have the baseline grid turned on for doing a book, because that way all your text will align across spreads and it will look pretty. Okay, so you need to choose a start position. That's fine, 0 is fine. And you can choose to start it at the top of the spread, the top of the page, or the top margin. I choose the top margin. And the default is 14 point, but I choose to have a wider setting than that. So I'm going up to 15. You can change the color, and you can change the display threshold, but you don't have to. Oh, hang on, one last thing. Show baseline grids. Okay, so now that's set up, and if you zoom out, you won't see it, but that's just because of the display threshold. All right, so we are now going to, I'm just going to, for the purposes of demonstrating how a style is created, I'm just going to make a text frame. this isn't how you'll be doing it when you're doing a book. I'm just doing it to demonstrating making styles. When you're doing a book, you'll have your text frames on your master page. So this is literally just to create styles. And I'm going to go to text, and I'm going to say insert filler text. And it comes in the default text, which is Arial. Boo hiss. So now we want to make the style look how we actually want our book to look. So if you go here, you'll see that it is in fact no style. So we want it to be body. So let's click body. Oops. We'll click body to assign body. Okay, and now you can see at the top that it has assigned body to your text. In this frame, you'll see which what's assigned to your text. Okay, so now we're going to edit the body style. So click on the right hamburger and go to edit body. Okay, so base. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. First, we actually want to set up our base style. So edit the base style. You can't delete the base style, by the way. Okay, so it's called base, and it is based on no style, and it doesn't have a keyboard shortcut. You don't need it to have a keyboard shortcut because you won't be assigning it to anything on its own. So character, at the moment it's Arial, and I'm going to change it to my beloved Allegria. Font trays, I don't want anything. So in fact, I'm going to say no change. And my font size, I'll take it down to 10. That's good. The next panel tells you the same information. The next thing that I want to do for the purposes of making a body font is to go to the spacing panel. And I want to have, I want justified last line left for a book. I want my leading to not be default. I want it to be exactly 15 points. Now it's 15 because my baseline is 15. So I want to be able to sit my text on my baseline. So you have to have the spacing and the baseline have to match. No left indent, no right indent. First line indent, I'm going to say 3 millimeters. And you can see it changing.
One question for you.
Yep.
Is there a reason why the default is always space after 12?
Have no idea. I think it's just because it's kind of web style to have space after paragraphs. I assume. So I'm going to change it to obviously to nothing, and oh, hang on, to naught. And you can choose to have space between paragraphs or only at column top. For body text, you want it between paragraphs if there were to be space. But for, as we'll see later, for chapter titles, column top is very useful. Okay, so the spacing is all done because we don't want space between, so we're not going to change it there. Justification, the default justification is not massively great. So I will quickly nip across to where I've fiddled with my own justification. So, okay, so now I'm in a different version of Affinity. And so I'm just going to quickly get out a recent book. And okay, so I'll just show you my justification settings. And you may want to copy these down because I got them from an industry professional and they are much better than usual defaults. So, okay, so you want your minimum word spacing to be a bit smaller than they set up as the default, and you want the desired to be perhaps a little more flexible, and the maximum, and then those letter spacings are nicer. So So those are worth having. Okay, so cancel that. Back to where we're setting up. What were they? Actually, I'm not going to bother to fiddle with them here because I'm not actually going to work in this version. No. No, come on, don't be lazy. You'll see that they give a maximum of quite a lot more than is ideal. So that's why we want to change it, because we don't actually want to allow the spacing to be quite as loose as they're allowing. And did you see that it actually did change noticeably? Okay, so I'm showing you the things that are necessary to change. One of the really important points to understand about the way Affinity works is that you should only set absolute values for things that you absolutely want to have changed in that style. You shouldn't be setting absolute values in each style. Like you shouldn't be setting a spacing as an absolute value in a child style, as it were. Okay, we want to align to baseline grid, and we want to turn hyphenation on. For books, you really do want hyphenation turned on, particularly small size books. Okay, so what I've done is I've set up all these things in my base style. In fact, I don't want a indent there. No indent. So what I've told my base style is I want hyphenation, I want it to align to the baseline grid, and virtually nothing else is set as a absolute value. Okay, so now I'm going to edit. So now I've set up my base. Now I want to edit the body style for one or two changes. Okay, the main change for the body style is to set the indent. You'll notice I set quite a small indent. I think people often choose to set very big indents, which is unnecessary. The only thing that you really have to make sure to change when you're going from base to body is, for some reason, Affinity has set an absolute value for the body type size, and you don't want an absolute value here because you want to be able to change it once in your base. So go to no change. No changes at the very top of the slider if you can't find it. And just checking spacing, we've got, so see here, we've got the alignment has got no change, the leading has got no change, everything is no change, except the one thing that we do want to change, which is the indent. Okay, so now this is body style and it's all set. Now we want to create a style for when we don't want an indent. So I'm going to create a style based on body. So I come down, go to my hamburger menu, and I create a style based on body. And I call it body no indent, or whatever you want to call it. And the only thing that really has to change is the first line indent to go to naught. Everything else will be the same as body is. So yeah, so you can see I'm only changing the one absolute value that must change. And now, if we have a look, put our cursor in this paragraph, you don't have to highlight the text. And in fact, when you're working with fill text, with placeholder text, you can't really. And now, for some reason, it's kind of weirdly editable. But I applied body no indent, and the indent went away. Okay, I'm sorry, I've forgotten one other thing. So I'm going to go back to edit body. I'm going to assign a keyboard shortcut to my styles, because it just makes working so much easier, because you don't actually have to even look at your style panel if you know your keyboard shortcuts. So I assign the same keyboard shortcut every single time. And I mean, in fact, I don't make styles anymore because I've got templates, but even if you do want to make your styles from scratch every time, and it's not a bad habit to do initially because it teaches you how to do them, but I rigidly assign the same keyboard shortcut every time. So my muscle memory is, I don't have to look at my text styles very much at all. Okay, so my keyboard shortcut, not all combinations work, but the one that does work well is Control Alt and number pad numbers. So I'm going to assign Control Alt 1 to my body style. And if that key combination is already assigned, it will warn you. Okay, so body no indent will also get will be edited to have a shortcut, and the shortcut for that is 2. Okay, so I've got body and I've got body no indent. Now the next style that I logically would like to have is a style for a paragraph with a drop cap. They do already have one. I'm not going to bother with it. In fact, I'm going to delete it because I want to create my own. Okay, so going back to body no indent, because obviously a paragraph with a drop cap doesn't have an indent. Create style based on body no indent. Drop cap paragraph, and I'll give it a number of 3, which is just the number I always give it. Okay, for the moment, I don't need to I'm not going to carry on creating the style because I'd have to do something else first. Okay, so I'll just say yes. Now I want to create a character style for the drop cap. But there's a better way of doing this, which involves creating a group style for your titles. Because in my personal taste, I like my drop cap to match my title font. Your taste may vary, in which case that's fine, but that's the way my taste runs, and that's how I prefer to do it. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you how to make a group style. Okay, so that's create a paragraph style, create a character style, create a group style. Create group style, and it comes up as based on no style, as it will inevitably be. And I'm going to say title, and it doesn't need a keyboard shortcut because it doesn't get applied on its own. Character, I am going to choose Allegre as well. I will change this later, but this is just the way I do my defaults. I don't want to make any decisions on font tray, so no change. And let me say 24 point as a sort of base font size. Very little else needs to change at this stage. In fact, I really don't want anything to change at this stage, but I am going to change the alignment to center. And I'm going to say, have my leading as default 1. I may come back and edit that later on individual title styles, but I'm not going to do anything to it now. I'm going to make sure that justification, it's fine. I'm not going to align it to the baseline grid, and I'm going to turn off hyphenation because you do not want your titles to hyphenate ever. Okay, so now I have a title group style on which I'm going to base a character style for my drop caps. So I'm going to create a character style. Oh, hang on. Yeah, create a character style, and I'm going to call it drop cap. And I'm going to choose based on title. It doesn't need a keyboard shortcut, and it literally needs nothing. It needs me to do nothing else at this stage. Okay, and now because of the hierarchy, it nests under title. So I can see at a glance that it's based on title. So now I'm going to edit my drop cap paragraph in order to actually put a drop cap into it. And I come down to drop caps and I say I enable it, and then I want to say how many lines. Let's go for drama. I'll say 3. Well, that's not super drama, but it's quite drama. I'm going to have 1 character. I'm not going to change the distance to text at this stage. And the style, I'm going to choose drop cap. That's all I need to do. Okay, so now if we were to choose drop cap paragraph, we can see that it applies our drop cap paragraph. There is one oddity in some typefaces. The height of the capitals does not actually reach the full height of the line when it's used as a drop cap. If that is the case, it's not the case for all, but Allegra is one where you have to fiddle with it. You need to go back and edit your drop cap's character style. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to position and transform, and you're going to change the horizontal and vertical scale. You're going to increase it until, okay, not so much horizontal. You're going to increase it until the drop cap looks like it's actually coming to the top of the text. And in order to preserve the font as it's intended to be, change the horizontal scale as well. And that's what you need to do there. If you want the drop cap to be a color, you can give it a color. And that's how you do it. But let's not bother with that. Okay, so now we've chosen color, so now we've got to, we're stuck with colors. So now we're going back to black. Okay. So we have now created an body styles, and we've got a character, we've got a title group style. So now let's go and create our titles. You can see I'm not bothering with any of their nonsense. So we go to title group style and we create a style based on title, and we're going to call it, I actually start with my chapter title, the way I do it. Okay, and I call it, I don't know why, give it a thingy of 4. And I'm going to say the next style, instead of being the title style, I want the next style to be body. Because it's more logical that you would want to follow a title with body, not with another title. I'm going to go to spacing, and because I already set the alignment in the title group style, I don't need to do that. The leading I can leave. I don't want any indents. But what I do want are 2 things. I want to change the spacing to only at column top, and I want to set quite a large amount of spacing. So let's say, well, that's not huge, but anyway, let's say 60. And I also want to create in the flow, which is where a paragraph is allowed to start. I want to say no change is just anywhere, but I actually want my titles to always start on a next page. I personally don't want them to always only start on an odd page, but you may have a different opinion, and in which case you can choose. But I always want them to be on the next page. And at this stage, that's all I'm going to worry about. So, okay. And now I will apply my chapter title. And you can see that it's immediately pops down well, it goes down 4 lines because it's 60, which is 4 15s. And there you have it. We can come back and make a lot of finer adjustments later, but we don't want to start making massively fine adjustments at this point. Right. let's put some text in a document and see, well, let's move on to master pages first. We've got enough text styles to be going on with, and we will make some more as we go along. Okay, so let me just delete that. We don't need that. And now we're going on to create master pages. Okay, so master pages are very useful because what they do is they allow you to set up all kinds of parameters, and they allow you to make quite quick changes to how your pages look, and things like you can change the margins very quickly if you do them properly on a master page. So double click on the master page to bring it up to be able to edit it. And the first thing you want to do is you want to put text frames on your master page. If you don't do that, you will be able to put text frames on your document page, but should you then change your margins or anything, you would have to change them on every document page. It's not worth it. Put your text frames on your master page. It also means you can't like inadvertently bump them out of place and stuff like that. So you create a text frame, make it match your margins for now. And for ease of use, you give it your body, you tell it that you want it to be body style. It doesn't really make that much difference, but you may as well start with a clean slate.
Question.
Okay, so drawing, sorry, yes?
Once you have all the styles set up, do they carry over into new documents, or do you have to reset them with every new project?
There are several ways of making them carry over, and I'll show you how to do that. If you don't do, you can set them as defaults so that every document you open, you will get the styles like very minimal styles you want. And you can also create templates with a bunch of other things set up. So there are two ways of doing it, and I'll show you how to do both of them. Okay, so now we've got two text frames, but in order to make text actually flow through our document, we need to link our text frame. So you just need to click on the little arrow key and go along, and you can see that it became a chain icon and it linked. Okay, so now text will automatically flow from the left-hand page to the right-hand page. You don't have to make any other links. It knows how to link itself. Okay, so this is going to be we're going to give it a new name, and we're going to call it, I just call the pages where I want normal text story. Okay. So now we have a story page, and it's got frames for text. We will want to add some other things later, but let's carry on and move on to the next exciting part of the way master pages work in Affinity, which is that you can have a master applied to another master. And one of the ways that this is most useful in books is to make a master page which just has your page numbers. Because then you can apply a master to, let's say you have a story page with headers and you want a chapter page with no headers, but you do want page numbers on your chapter openers. And then you decide that you want to change the positioning of your page numbers or whatever. You only have to change it on one master and not on two. So that is a useful thing to do. So we're just going to call it page numbers. Now the only thing we need to set here is the frame for the page numbers. So I'm going to draw a frame which aligns to, oh, for heaven's sake, which aligns here. Do I not have snapping turned on? Whoops. Okay, I didn't have snapping turned on, and you saw how hard it was for me to align stuff there. So you want to enable snapping, which means that things will snap to the nearest grid line. And it really does make laying out monumentally easier. So do enable snapping. Okay, so now I want this to align nicely to the edges of my margins. So you can see that the line went green. That means it's aligned. and there it's aligned. Okay, so now I want to set up my page numbers, and I want to do it once and copy it across. So how am I going to do that? I actually need a style. So let me come across and create a style. Every time, so now I know, okay, now I need the style, I'm going to create it. I want it to be based on body no indent because I want my page numbers to have the same font as my body type, but I do not want any indent because if I center my page numbers, for instance, but they're already indented, they'll actually be, they'll indent and then center, and you don't want that. So you want to base it on the logical thing to base it on. So I edit it. I don't edit it. Sorry about that. I create a style based on. Okay, I don't need to give it a keyboard shortcut because I don't need to apply it often. Don't waste your keyboard shortcuts on styles that only need to be applied once or twice. It's going to be no change on the font family, but I am going to change the size, and I'm going to take it down to 9 point. I'm just going to make it a point smaller. And the other thing I'm going to change is I'm going to change the leading because obviously I don't want it to be leaded so wide. So I'm going to change the leading to default 1. Nothing else there, but I do also want it to not be aligned to the baseline grid. And sorry, back to spacing. Okay, so I tend to lay out with mostly centered numbers, but there are other ways of doing it. In terms of page numbers, one of the good things to set is away from spine, and I'll set that now, because that means that on the left page it will be on the left extremity of the page, and on the right page it will be on the right extremity, and you don't have to do anything to cause that to happen. So that's a handy thing to know. Okay, so now I'm going to make my oh, I never gave it a name. Footers. Okay, so I'm going to assign my footer style to my little box. And now I'm going to use what is called a field, which it's a sort of placeholder that picks up dynamic text from its context. And I'll show you, you'll see how it works. So you go to text, insert, fields, page number. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I keep on going in the wrong place because I'm going right up to the top of my screen. I do apologize. Text, insert, fields, page number. And it goes there, and if I zoom in, you can see it is a little hash mark. And that's all good. Now, in order to place an exactly identical text frame on the opposite page, I have it selected, I hold down Alt and I drag, and it makes a copy of itself. If you drop it, it'll position itself in the right place. And you can see that on this page, the hash mark is at the right-hand extremity because we set it to be away from the spine. So that's pretty handy. Okay, so now we've got a master page which has page numbers, but nothing else. So now we apply this master page to another master page. So we're going to apply it to the story master page. And now if we open the story master page, we'll see that it's got these frames, but they are not editable on the story master page because they don't actually live here. And you can see any frame that cannot be shifted will have X's on its movement handles. So I can't move that around on this page, on this master, but I can move them on this master.
Question.
Yes.
Someone wants you to reiterate, please, how do you make it copy? When they drag it over, it just moves it.
You just it's already set. You've got your move tool, and you've got it selected. You can see that it's selected because it's got the handles are available. You hold down Alt and just drag it, and it makes a copy. On a Mac, it's the key that stands in for Alt on a Mac, and I'm sorry, I don't know what that key is because I don't use a Mac. But there is a way of doing it on a Mac as well. If it doesn't work initially, you're just not holding it down properly or something. It sometimes just doesn't, and you just have to try again. But it is quite handy for making copies instantly. Okay. So now we want to make on our story page, we want to set up a spot. Oh, suddenly I've got a terrible echo. We want to set up a spot to put in headers. So let us draw a text frame for that. I'm going to draw it there, and I'm actually going to give it the same style as my footers. So I'm going to just insert the footer style, and I'm just going to write title. Okay, but personally, I don't like my headers to be in this style, so I'm going to do a bit of editing. Always edit styles with nothing selected, because otherwise you can end up with with an edit that doesn't actually apply to the style as a whole. Okay, so I'm going to edit my footers. I'm actually going to change its name as well, so I don't know what I'm actually wanting to do with it. I'm going to call it headers footers. And I'm going to try and type. Okay, so I'm going to show you a way of making things. I mean, this is the only style change I'm going to make. I'm going to make capitals, and my personal favorite for headers is to have them in all small caps. So that's what I'm going to say. And no, hang on, all small caps like that. You can do it in small caps. You can do it in all caps. Whatever is your personal preference. I just like all small caps. I think it's more discreet. But that's all I'm going to do there. One more thing, I'm going to change the figures to old style. I happen to like old style figures. Okay. Now I'm going to use what is called a running header to apply. So I'm going to have my title on my left-hand page, and this may be somewhat more common UK book convention, but it's the one I use because South African books basically are imported from the UK, so that's what I'm used to. So I'm going to have a running chapter title on my right-hand page. So I don't want to change the anything else about it. So let me make a copy. Alt and drag, and then if you're dropping it in the correct place, you'll see that the green lines and the red lines come up. The red lines tell you it's vertically aligned, and the green lines tell you it's aligned to the frame below it. Okay, so but I don't want my title there. I want to use another field called a running header. So go back to text, insert, field, running header. And it comes up like that. And I'm going to edit the field. And I'm going to tell it that I want it to pick up every instance of my chapter title. So I look for my chapter title, which is hidden away from me.
A question for you.
Hello, yes.
What is meant by old style figures?
It's like the 3s and the 9s drop below the line. It is just a preference tabular figures are like when you would use in a table that they all sit nicely on the line. Why can I not find my titles? This is very frustrating and annoying. Okay, chapter title, sorry. Okay. So yeah, that's just a personal preference. Okay, so now my running header is set to pick up every instance of my chapter title style. And you'll see when we put text into this document how that works. Okay, so because I have headers, I will want to have a chapter title, a chapter page which has no headers. So I'm going to create another master, and I'm going to call it chapter. And don't need to make any changes. And all I need to do is give it text frames and apply the correct style, which is body, and draw another text frame and link them together. It will automatically apply the last style that you've been applying. So I wanted to apply headers and footers, but I didn't want that, so I changed it to body. But now in the next box I draw, it will know to apply the correct style. Okay, so linking it. And then I want to apply the page numbers to the chapter title, to the chapters as well. Okay, so there are my chapters. There are my page numbers on my, but no headers. And there's just one other one I want, and that's a page with nothing else except a text frame. For like front matter, you don't want page numbers. So I'm going to create one more, and I'm going to call it no page numbers. And I'm just going to draw text frames. You don't 100% need text frames on this page because Affinity will do a thing where it will do what it calls place it on the document layer. I have no idea what that really means, but you don't lose your text if you don't have a text frame, but it's better to have one. Okay, so we now have, for a simple book, all the pages we need. And we have some styles to be going on with. So at this point, I'm actually going to ditch all these other styles because they're just in the way. So I'm just going to delete them. Once you've got, if you wait and have like use your styles and apply all the styles you want, you can go and go to a thing that says and delete all unused styles. But I haven't got any text, so that would delete a bunch of stuff that I actually want. I'm going to leave table body because you never know. Any group style, it will delete all the styles associated with that. So I have no idea why they made all of these into discrete styles. It doesn't make any sense to me. You'll see that in terms of character styles, they have emphasis and strong already created. So you don't have to create an emphasis style. Okay. So now we're going to bring in some text. So now we want to put text on our document, not on any master page. So make sure you're in your document. There's only one page at the moment. And what the hell? You can see that it's got a text box on it. That's because we drew one initially. So let's get rid of that. And when I click on it, you can see that it's got a text frame, but it can't be shifted around on this part of the document because it's on the master page. Okay, so is everyone aware of one of the best ways of getting text from AO3 to put into Affinity documents is to download an HTML, copy and paste the HTML into a Google Doc, and download an RTF file from Google Docs. I think you could probably just go straight to Word, but I don't know. I just do it the Google Docs route. And what that does is it creates quite a minimal styled file, but it does preserve things like italics. So that's what you want to do. Do you want me to demonstrate that, or can I just use a file that I made earlier? I mean, it's quick to do, but it's quicker not to.
We're getting at
Okay,
least one. Please demonstrate.
okay, no problem. Let's go and do that. Okay, so I'm going to my AO3. Let me see. I don't want anything. Okay, I actually am going to use this story, so let's go to it. Download HTML. Go to my downloads. Control A to select it all. Control C. Don't need that anymore. All I use Chrome for is Google Docs. So that's why it's the only thing. Okay. Paste it. And give it a title. And then go to File, Download. And you can let you choose a bunch of formats. You can choose docx. I choose rich format. It's just less likely to have formats that you don't want. It takes a little bit, but not very long. And there it is. And because I already had a copy of it from I had already made an RTF of this story. It knows that it's the second one. Okay. So now we can close Chrome. We don't need it. Okay, so with our cursor in our text frame, we go to File, Place, Control-Shift-M. And we go to look for our file and we find it and we open it. And it takes a little while, and that's how it will look. It comes in the default AO3 font or a default font. And now we can start setting it up. The very first thing you want to do is you want to find and change. And because I haven't used this set up before, I went to Window and I turned on. I got hold of my Find and Replace panel, and now it will set itself up here. There are a bunch of tools that will come over here, and a bunch of other tools that when you open them will be here. Okay, so find and replace. Click on the gear. Click on Format. This panel will open, and all you want to do is you want to tick italic. So it's going to find all italics in your incoming text, and you want to replace it with a character style of emphasis. And I don't think InDesign does this unless it's changed it more recently. It will actually show you every single instance of italics in the document. And you can set up a range. You can tell it to go to the document, to just a section, to a spread, to a page, blah, blah, blah. Document, obviously. And now you can say replace all. It will have replaced all. And now we can go back and place our text in our body style. So we go back to the gear and we say reset format. If you don't say reset format, it's going to put your entire text in italics. You don't want that. So always be sure to reset the format. Every time you come and make a new find and change, reset your format. Okay, so now we want everything that came in from the RTF in the RTF's body style, which is called normal. In most cases, it will be normal. You'll notice that I do nothing to my incoming text. I don't muck around with it in Word at all. I don't think it's necessary. And I'm going to reset it. Reset format. If you have to reset the format, it will be bright. If it's grayed out, you don't have to. And I'm going to reset I'm going to style everything that was normal. I'm going to style to my body. And I'm going to say find. and it finds each chunk of text. And I'm going to say replace all, and now you see it in my desired text. Okay, but there's only one page. Oh my word. What are we going to do now? You see the arrow is red and there's a little eye. If you click on the eye, if you turn the eye off, you'll see that it turns off. But if the eye is turned on, you can see that this is what's overset. So in order to make, for Affinity to make enough pages to accept all your copy, you hold down Shift and click the arrow, and it will make the pages needed. And if you look over to the right here, you can see that it's made 97 pages to have your text on. Obviously, you want to do a few things here. For some reason, AO3 changed to have, after the first instance of the title, they have a line break instead of a paragraph break. I don't know why, but anyway. All right, so now what I want to do next, I want to find all my chapter titles and restyle them. So let's do that. And then you'll be able to see the way chapter titles jump to their own new page. So reset format, search for the paragraph style of heading 2, which is the AO3 chapter titles. Reset format, choose the paragraph style of chapter title. Find, replace all. Okay, do you see what happened there? It knows that each chapter, each one must start on its new page. But it's not going to start on a right-hand page because I didn't set it up that way.
And just
All
a
right.
heads up, we are at the hour mark. I can
Right.
absolutely stay, but I just want to let you know that's where we're at.
Okay, fantastic. Do people want to ask questions at this stage, or are you happy to carry on? Okay, so this is pretty minimalist and not very interesting looking. But when you're first starting off, it's quite difficult to sort of picture in your head what everything's going to look like before you've applied it to, before you've actually got text in front of you. So that's why I didn't actually make a massive amount of styling on my chapter title style initially. But one thing I will want is I want to put some space below because that's very cramped. So let's go and edit our chapter title style. So click off your page so you don't have anything selected. And now we want to edit our chapter title style. Where is it? I can't find anything because it's in a different place than it is on my screen. Anyway. Okay, so we want to go to our the panel. Whenever you open an edit panel, it'll go to the last panel you were on in whatever style you were editing. It just does that by default. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to come to spacing, and we want to say, 60 is not very far down the page. We could make something a bit more dramatic. So let's up that. Let's drop it to that. Well, let's go a bit further. We'll go down to there. And then we want some space after. I typically put two grid lines, so that's I've got a grid of 15, so I'm going to say 30 points. Okay, but shall we do something more? Let us turn on. What shall we turn on? Let's give it an underscore. Why not? So color and decorations, we can just tell it we want it to have an underline and we want the underline to have a color. Let's just make it black. Let's not do anything fancy just at this stage. Okay. Why did that not change? I have no idea. It should have given it an underline. Why didn't it? Sorry, don't know why. Okay. Oops. That didn't work. Single, there you are. Had to change one more thing. And the spacing, yes. Why is the spacing not looking good? Don't know. Maybe I need to make it bigger. So you can see that actually making things work can be a bit of a up and down business. Okay, so now I've got my setup and it's frustratingly not doing what I hope it to do, but let's press on and we'll solve that problem later. Okay, so first paragraph of a story, we want to use the drop cap, and because we know what keyboard shortcut we've got, I can quickly apply that and it applies. I personally prefer the second paragraph if the first is very short to be also no indent. And that's now applied. So, but why is there such a colossal space? And why can't I see what's there? It's because we haven't turned on show special characters. So show special characters will show you what's going on there. We'll park that because obviously that's where the writer wanted some sort of break, but we haven't decided what break we're going to use there yet. So let's not worry about that just at the moment. And we'll press on. Okay, so what I tend to do is just kind of scroll through the document, just looking at, seeing, okay, this is how she's done this is how the author's done their breaks, just checking things out. Nothing else needs to be done massively at this point. You don't need to start fixing your widows and orphans. That comes much later. The chapter styles come in as bold, but we don't want them bold, so I'm turning the bolding off, which is applied over here. And we apply. Okay, so we're going through, it's not a very long fix, so we can just scroll, scroll, scroll. Zoom out a bit to make that easier. So this is basically my first run through. All I'm doing is just applying that one style that is necessary at the beginning of every chapter, and it's giving me a chance to pick up anything that I might want to notice. And we go. Fortunately, it's not very long. If I open my pages panel, you can see that as I scroll, it's scrolling on the pages panel as well, which is quite useful. Okay, and can you see that it's picked up the running header of the chapter name? Okay, in a fic that has only numbered chapters, I wouldn't use a running header like that. It's it's just boring. So I would either have like the author and the book title probably, or not have any headers at all. And that would be just a decision I would make on personal taste. Okay. All right. Now we come to the end of the document, and while it fitted when I first brought it in, it no longer fits because I've broken the text up a bit. So I have to make it add extra pages, and it's the same procedure. Hold Shift and click the red arrow, and there we'll see it creates enough pages. We'll have to come and create some more pages at the end later, but we'll do that later. Okay, so in very short order, we've managed to separate all our chapters and do some basic styling. We've got our pages looking how we want them to be. We can see our special characters. if we turn on highlight fields, you can see that anything that's a dynamic field will have this like mustard highlight. You may or may not like that, but it's a way of actually seeing what's a dynamic field when you're in this mode. When you turn on preview mode, you'll see it how it will look printed, and obviously there's no highlights there.
Question.
Okay. Yes.
Is there a way to mark text breaks inside chapters en masse?
Yes, you would do it. You would create a break style and then have a look at what the how it's coming in. So this person, what they did for a break was they like space paragraph paragraph space paragraph. So I would create a style for the break, and I would base it on body no indent because I want my break character to be centered. So I don't want it to be indented. So I would call it break, and I would say I'm going to give it a bit of space, but I'm going to give it a line of space before. I'm going to change the alignment to centered, and I, at this stage, won't do anything else, but I probably will come back and do a bit of tweaking in a moment. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert, instead of this gap, I'm going to insert an asterisk for a break. So I know I look here and I see that the author's used this set of characters to indicate her break. So come back to find and reset format. And now I'm going to find these characters and I'm going to replace it with what I want to replace it with. So this little magnifier tells you that this is where you look for special characters. And the special characters are things like break characters and spaces and what have you. So you wanted to look for, okay, space paragraph break, paragraph break, space paragraph break. And you want to replace it with 3 asterisks and a paragraph break. If you don't put the paragraph break after it, it's going to run into the next text. So remember that functionally you're replacing 3 paragraph breaks with one little bit of text with a paragraph break. But you also want to style it. So having told it what characters you want to go and apply a paragraph style, and you want to apply your break paragraph style. So now find, and it will find all of them in the document, and replace all, and it has replaced them all. Okay, but that's kind of ugly. It is too much space above and not enough space below. So let us edit that style. And what we're going to do is we're going to edit the position of the asterisk relative to the baseline. So in position and transform, we want to push it up as much as you want, as much as you think will look visually nice. And you can come back and tweak this, so you don't have to get too worried about it. It's quite difficult to see the spacing when you've got a short line there. So let's find a place where we can see the spacing a bit better. That's a bit better. I also find it a little bit difficult to judge these things with the baselines turned on, so let's turn them off. Okay, so that's now gone slightly too high. So a lot of creating styles is, you do what you think and then you come back and you sort of fiddle it around a bit. Okay, I think that looks visually centered for now. Okay. So what else do we want? We want obviously a title page, and we want a half we want a half title style, and I usually run the summary on its own page just as a sort of epigraph for the story. So let's create those styles. Because we want these styles to all be centered, we obviously don't want to base them on an indented style, so we're going to base them on body no indent. Create half title, and we want it to be Allegreia, but we want the font size to be
Question for you to review.
hello.
How did you assign the break style to those asterisks?
When I was doing my find and replace, I told it to find that set of characters that the author had used and replace them with a set of characters I wanted to assign. But also at the same time, I said it must apply the break style. So you can apply characters and a style at the same time in one find and replace maneuver. Does that answer the questioner's question?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay. Okay, so my half title, let me go back to editing that because all I want to do is I want to just change the spacing to drop it down the page slightly so I want to have at column top space before and I actually want it to be the same as my chapter title, how far that moved down. So let me go and check what that was because I've forgotten. It was 116, so I will make it the same. And I've changed the capitals to all caps. That's just the way I like to do my half titles. Your taste may vary, in which case that's fine. I don't want it to be bold, so I'm going to take the bold off right now, and I'm going to apply the half title. Why didn't it work? This is being a little bit awkward. There's some spacing issues that aren't working very well, and I'm not 100% certain why they are not working. Use space before. Oh, for heaven's sake. Okay, I think I actually have no idea why it's not. Oh, there you go. Only at column top, and maybe I didn't apply. Okay, now it's done what I wanted it to do. Okay, so now I want to tell this text to move on to the next page. So I could either go to text, insert, break, page break, or I can just go. Sorry, I forgot that I assigned a keyboard shortcut to that. And if you want to do it easily, you'll have to go and assign a keyboard shortcut. But let's not worry about that right now. Okay, so page break. So it pushes it over to the next page. And that's so now you'd create your front matter. Here we have what we want. So here's our next style that we need, which is a main title style. So we can go and create that. Group style, create a we're not going to change the character, but we are going to change the size, and we're going to make it, I don't know, 64 points, let's say, on the argument's sake. We want it to be centered actually, I think our group style was centered. So and now we want some space before at the column top. And because it's quite a long title, we won't want to drop it quite as much. So let's start by dropping it.
Question.
60 points. Yes.
Is there a reason half title paragraph style is based off body no indent instead of the title group?
Because I don't want it to, well, my taste is to have it in the same as the text font. And at the moment they're the same font, but they won't always be the same font. So if you want it to be the same as your title font, absolutely. I personally don't want it to be the same as my title font. So that's why I've changed it. And because it's a main title, I can give it flow, and I can say on next odd page, because obviously your main title will always be on the next odd page. So, and now here's my title, so I can apply that to, and there it goes. That is not very pretty. Yeah, that's better. Okay, but you may think, well, that's very bland. So let's fiddle with it some more. Let's say have our capital, let's say, small caps. Yeah, maybe. Affinity, well, the version I've got of Allegra, the small caps aren't as pretty as they used to look to me in InDesign, so I'm not sure I'd like that. So let's say all caps. Maybe a bit better. Okay, but in fact, do we really want our titles to be the same as our body text? Not so much. So let's now make some decisions about our titles. And we're going to do it by changing the group titles, the group style, not the individual styles. And let us pick some. Okay, I'm going to pick my current favorite, which is Cicero, just because. I'm not sure I like it in caps, but we'll stay with that for the moment. And now you can see that it's changed the chapter titles and the drop caps because those are all based on the title font. So that's a very powerful use case for having group styles. Okay, so then we can come, we say, no, we don't actually, do we like all caps? Maybe not. And we fiddle around. We may want to drop it further down the page. We may not. There are plenty of things we might want to do. We do want to make a style for our author name. So and my taste is to have the same font. Yours may not be that. Let it be your own taste. We're going to have it because it's titles, and we've already got our title set up as no change as centered. We don't have to worry to change anything here. Use space before. We want between paragraphs because we want it to have space. We don't want it to be pushed up against the title. And the space before we want to say, I don't know, 45 points. And apply. And that looks kind of pretty. Maybe, you might not like that, but there you go. And we move through and we say, okay, next style we want a style for our summary. So let us make one. Okay, again, I want my summary to be the same font as my body, but I want it to be a bit bigger and I want it to be centered and a bunch of other things. So again, I base it on body no indent because I want it to be centered. So anything I want to be centered, I must base on no indent because I need it to not be indented and then centered. And I want some space before at the column top. And let's give it the same amount of space before. We do not want it hyphenated. And we don't want to align it to the baseline grid. We do want to give it a name. And also so we want it to be a few points bigger, not like hugely bigger, but let's say 13. And then in the spacing, we want to change the leading to exactly 18. And it will look nicer if I'm busy gesturing with my hands futilely. It will look nicer if it's not the full width of if it's like slightly narrower than the page. So let's set some indents. Going to set reasonably dramatic indent on both sides, the same. And okay, we've already turned off hyphenation. We've turned off baseline grid. We could set it to be on the next, well, let's do that. May as well. We're going to set it on the next odd page. That's because I always want it on an odd page. You don't have to set that. You could move it manually, but you can. Okay, so now here's our summary, and ta-da! I'm going to want to move that to the next page. And for some reason, there's some break characters instead of paragraphs, which is a little bit annoying. Okay, so I've got these break characters, but I don't want break characters. So I could just change them manually. They're not many, but let's do it a sensible way. I'm going to do a find and change. I removed the characters that I had there previously, and I want to find a line break, and I want to replace it with a paragraph break. And it's only here, but I replaced them all. I make a style for this that's pushed down the page, but you don't have to. I do want to work out what's going on here with this chapter title, why it's not working with the spacing. Let's try and work that out. Space after. No, that's fine. I'm baffled as to why it's not, the space after is not working. If that helps. Well, I'm really rather puzzled. That's never happened to me. No idea. It could be a glitch. This is a beta version that I don't actually use. I signed up for the beta program, then was too lazy. Because I had to go, I was like, oh, I have to set everything else up again. Can't be bothered. But they do keep on sending me updates, so it's very nice. Okay, so now obviously you want to change, you don't want your chapter title to have a header. So let's apply the master page, the relevant master page. So we scroll through our master page offerings and we want to apply the chapter master page to this chapter. And when we applied it, you saw the header disappear because the header is not part of the chapter master page. And in the front matter, you can see that there is nothing in this field because there is no chapter. Now this comes before any chapters, so it doesn't have there's nothing for it to get text from. But you obviously don't want, even though it's blank, you still don't want it there, and you don't want any page numbers on these pages either. So you drag. Can you see what I'm doing? I just drag it. Okay. When I wanted to apply to a single page, I drag on the the right-hand side to apply to a right-hand page. But in this instance, I'm going to apply to both. So click it in the center to highlight the whole thing and drag it in the center and it will apply to the whole spread. But over here, I only want no page numbers to apply to the left. So I just take the left and I drag it onto the left-hand side of the spread. And then if you hover your mouse, it will tell you what's applied. So chapter is applied to the right and no page number is applied to the left. So that is quite a handy piece of info. Okay. So in a very basic sense, we have now created a book. And, I mean, this isn't the most fancy book, but we have got a perfectly serviceable book, which we could print. So let's do that. So we go to, first you want, okay, you do want to save, you do want to save your document quite a long time before this point, and place it where you want it to be, give it a name, place it where you want it to be and save it. Because if Affinity were to crash, you could lose quite a bit of work if you don't. Affinity is quite good. When it crashes, it usually saves you a recovery copy, and it's usually not, you usually don't lose a colossal amount of work, but you do lose some. So it's always a good point. Okay, so now we want to export it. We go to File, we go to Export, and oops, pre-flight warnings. So pre-flight is it tells you, it's like before you, I don't know why it's called pre-flight, but anyway, it's warning you, it's giving you all the things that is wrong with your document. So you want to open the pre-flight and it's missing a dictionary. Don't worry about that. You want to scroll through and see where is the problem. Oh, overflowing text frame. That's because we moved some text around at the front of the book. So we obviously need to make more pages at the back. And we can see also here, we can see that we obviously this blank page, we don't want it to have a page number. So just as well we checked. We want to apply a blank, but we also need a concluding page. We need a left-hand page at the back. So here's add pages. We add, and we only want to add one, and it will default to wanting to put it at the back. And we want it to have no page numbers, but you can choose. It allows you to pick which ones you want. Okay. But that's correct. Okay, and it creates a new page, and it's exactly how you want it. It's a page with no page numbers, but everything else is fine. And now your pre-flight has warnings, but nothing actually wrong. It's got no errors. The warnings are like missing dictionaries, because I haven't set the document dictionary correctly. But we won't worry about that for the purposes of this. Okay, so now we can go back to File, Export, and now it's not flagging that, but it is flagging. This is a thing that catches us a lot, is the default output, the default export setting is all spreads. Now, clearly, to make an imposed document, you don't want spreads, you want pages. And I have no idea why Affinity thinks all spreads is the best default, because it isn't. All pages is a far better default, but what can you do? So make sure to change it. If you have a document that looks really weird in the Imposer, it's quite often, almost always, because you've output spreads and not pages. You don't have to change much else about that. These are the defaults. It includes things like layers, which we'll come to, spot colors, things like that. Don't worry, you don't need to include printers marks. If you were sending it out to a commercial printer and you had bleed and crop marks and all kinds of things like that, you would want them to be printed, but you don't need to. You do want to embed your fonts. It's safest to embed them, because then a copy of the font travels with the document, so that if you end up printing it on a printer that doesn't have your fonts installed, it'll still print okay. And you export it. And we're putting it in our same place. It takes a little while, depending on how complicated your and you can see here that it's got this lock file. That's if you've got a Affinity document open, it will make a lock file. Don't worry about it. It's just a computer thing. And here is our file. Okay, so it's not the complete article, but you can see that it's bookish. Not a completely finished book. The person who asked about old style figures are like this. They drop, they're just more elegant. Some characters drop below the baseline a little bit. And as I say, you may or may not like old style figures, but that's what they are. And there is our, it's not, yeah, it's getting there. What else shall I show you?
So I have a couple of things to circle back to.
Right.
Back when you were working with the masters and all that, there was a question, if you could please review, how do you make the actual page take on the page number? They didn't know if it was combining multiple masters or some other step that they missed.
No, it is creating a page number master, which only has the page number field on it. So you don't, so the margins are drawn in for you, but I haven't put a text frame on these margins deliberately. But the text frame I have drawn is the page numbers. And I've applied the page number style, and I've inserted a field, and I've told it to be page numbers. And then I've clicked on the page numbers master, and I've dragged it onto the other master that I want to apply to. So that if I was to make a change here, say I decide that I want, in fact, I want to change my page number style completely. I want to have it sticking out there, say. So I'm going to delete that so that I can end up with a matching one. So I don't want it aligned with the text frame. I want it hanging out in the margin. So click on it, Alt, drag it, and I want it to align on the left of the frame so that it sticks out the same amount. And now you can see that the change has been made on that chapter master and on the story master without me having to go and fiddle with those masters themselves. So if you want to make, you could, I mean, you could have the page numbers applied to the other masters, and you could copy them from one and paste them on the other, and that does work, but it's simpler to do it this way. There are plenty of other things you could make masters with like different color overlays that you want to. So you want some of your story pages to have like a pink background and others to have a different background. You could make all kinds of different masters and apply them to different other masters. In terms of laying out a novel, the page numbers is the most obvious use case for layered masters. So I don't really, okay, I mean, I don't think I would really want my numbers to be there, but it was an easy way of making that change.
That cleared that up.
Okay, so right at the beginning, I was asked, how do you make these basic styles that you've set cascade through to other documents? And the way you do that is when you're on your text styles, you go to the hamburger menu at the top there, and you can say save styles as default. I wouldn't want to save these styles as default because I don't want to save the Cicero font as my kind of system default. So if I'd wanted to do that, I would have saved them before I started editing these. Because you don't want to have some like quirky style that you set up for one document being your default that you've got to fiddle around with every time. So I wouldn't do that, but that I have done that for my own personal copy of Affinity, which I can show you, because I just don't like the defaults. And I also got rid of all the styles that I don't use because it just makes my life simpler. The other way of creating a document that you can use to easily create subsequent documents is to make a template. And the way you do that is you want to make as plain a document as possible, and then create a template from that. So I would come to this one. So okay, I've done a lot of work and I like most of my styles. So it's a reasonable time to make a template. It's not a perfect time because there are other things that could and maybe should be tweaked, but let's say we're reasonably happy. So make a copy, and just call it copy. And then what you'll want to do is you'll want to Control A and delete all your text, because you obviously don't want your template to come with like preloaded with a bunch of text that you don't need. And then you actually want to delete the pages as well. You could leave them, but I prefer to have as simple a document as possible for my template. So to delete your pages, you click on the first page that you don't want and shift click on the last page, and then this delete selected pages will be active and you can delete them. And now you're left with a quite minimalist document that's only got one page, but has got everything else you need. At this point, I would go and change my title group back to something bland, like Allegria, just as a sort of vanilla starting point, as it were. And then you go to File, and you can choose Export as Template. And it asks you need to make a place to put them. I've got a folder on my in my computer called my templates folder, and you can save it. I'm just going to save it where I'm saving all my guide work stuff. And then if you want to make a new document based on your template, you've got an option to have, okay, so you could just start a new document from the presets, but now you've got an option to make a template, get it from the templates. You have to search for where the templates are. So what was it called? Demo. Show folder. Why is it not working? Okay. Well, it's not where I expect it to be. So let's just go and check. I have no idea why I can't find it, but anyway, there it is. So if I can't find it by okay, I couldn't find it through Affinity, but I can find it by just knowing where I put it. And there you go. So now it's created a file that's based on the hard work you've already done, and you can see that everything you set up is there, but none of their default styles are there. So that's very handy. And I mean, I've got okay, so let's leave that and go to my copy of Affinity, where I've got things set up the way I want them to be set up. And I've got a template folder, and I've got a bunch of different templates. I've got templates that I made for like book series, and yeah, just a bunch of stuff that I needed templates for, and that I'm constantly adding to, and it's very handy. I almost always just start off with my very bland template, and then I don't have to do a massive amount of extra work to set up my documents. You may, I mean, I would say initially it's quite good to set up a few documents from scratch and have a bit of practice of making styles. But as you go on, you don't need to practice making styles, so why do the work? So I've chosen a template that I want to use, and you can see that it's already got my everything set up how I want it. So it's very easy to use. I want to show you okay, this is really not operating very much how I want it to be. Am I in the right copy? No. Open recent. Okay, so I've got my recent documents that I've worked on, so I can immediately go back to my recent documents. There's one other way of creating different headers, and that's to create sections. Now, I would not use it to create page headers anymore. Affinity didn't used to have a running header set up, but it now does. So you don't need to worry about using sections for that. But it is useful for one thing, and that's to have your first chapter actually starting on page 1, if that's your taste. So have your pages panel open and double click on the page where you want that you want to be styled as page 1, and then you go to Window, Section Manager, and the whole book is in one section at the moment, but you can make a new section. So you've got your in the Pages panel, you've got the page where you want your section to start selected. So add section, and now you've got section 2. By default, the section will start on the left-hand page of your spread, but obviously you don't want that. So you can just change it there. So now it's starting on page 7. This is page 7 at the moment, but we want it to be numbered from page 1. So just restart the numbering. And it has restarted the numbering. If you would like to have like Roman numerals on your front matter, I think it's a little bit of a retro style, but you may fancy that. You can set up different numbering conventions for your different sections. So you can pick your different number styles, and you can have each section having a different number style, if you want. Because we have running headers, we don't need to break the document up into more sections, but that is the other way of having running headers. You can make your field into a section field and do it that way. But they introduced running headers, thank God, and now our lives are easy. So we don't have to worry. Okay, so that's how to make a very, very plain document. I can show you how to make slightly less plain documents, or we can just have a Q&A, or we've been going for almost 2 hours, so we may want to stop. I'm happy to carry on and have a Q&A, or stop, or if you need to leave, you can. But if there's anything else fancy you wanted me to show you, we can do that.
So there was one question of if in your second presentation for the intermediate one, if that's going to include drop cap art or header art.
Like chapter title art, yes.
Yes, chapter.
But I mean, I can show. It's pretty easy. I can show it to you now. I mean, we don't have to get into like super complicated stuff, but I can easily show you how to do that. Is that something people are wanting?
Yeah, it looks like there's a second request for it also.
Okay. Okay, so the way to do that is to put it on your chapter master. And you want to just draw in a space for it and find a picture. And what picture shall I find? I'm trying to think where I've got a picture. Okay, I've actually got the picture that was it's fan art for this story, so let's use that. If you know the Temeraire series, it's Temeraire. Okay. I mean, I would probably do a few things to it if I was using it, but okay, so now we've got it here, and we want to shift it. We need to put it on both sides of our chapter master because our chapter titles fall on, our chapter openers are falling on left and right pages. Okay, so, but you want the picture to be underneath any text. So here we come to another panel that is useful, and that's the layers panel. And it is in the where is it? It's in the under window, and you can turn on layers. And it will default to going here into this side of the setup. And it shows you how things are stacking. And you can see at the moment the picture frames are lying at the top of the hierarchy. But in fact, you don't want the picture frames to be, you want the text to be able to be on top of the picture. So you can just move the pictures below the frame text. I'm just going to move them both. And now if you click here, you don't select the picture, you select the frame because the text frame is in front of the picture. If you do want to select the picture, you just have to click and in the layers panel, and it will send it forward or back. I mean, it will select it forward or back. Okay, so now you can see that because it's on the master, it applies to the page. Okay, so now we can say, oh well, that's just, doesn't look good at all, obviously. So now we have to go and edit our text style to make our chapter's title push further down the page. So when you like doing things like chapter openings, it's a lot of it, some of it is based on the text style, where the chapter title falls is in the text style. I mean, you could move the top of your text frame on the master down, but it's, I think, more elegant to use the spacing built into the text styles rather than other spacing, personally. So, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want it to be on the picture, but not on top of the action part of the picture. Because I've positioned the title where I want it, but I've still got this problem with this spacing. I'm going to see if I can't make this work in the drop cap paragraph. Might. Okay, so I'm going to use space before, only between paragraphs, and let's see if that works. Aha! It should, okay, applying space after to the chapter title 101% should have worked, but it didn't, and I don't know why. But this is the alternative way. You can apply space before to the paragraph that comes after, rather than applying space after to the paragraph that comes first. So I apologize for that not working the way it should, but that's unfortunately what's occurred to us. Okay. So that's a very, very simple way of applying a picture to a master. Now you can see we have not yet applied chapter master to chapter 2, so we're just going to apply it. It takes a little while, and there we have it. And you can do all kinds of other fancy things. You could make your picture at the bottom of the page rather than the top. I will show you okay, so now I'm back to my other version of this is my personal version. This is the book I'm laying out. Okay, so what I've done is I have instead of putting my picture in the space at the top, I thought it might look quite nice to have it in the text. And I applied a text wrap to the image. And it's not complicated, but I would rather save it for the next tutorial. But I've told the picture to how to push the text away. And I applied it on, for goodness sake. I applied it differently on the 2 pages. And for some reason, if you've got like a text wrap on a picture and it's in text and it's pushing text away, if you've got 2 matching master pages, if you've got your picture on each side of the spread, for some reason the wrap will be applied to text on the opposite side of the spread, but not the picture. So I don't know why it does that. And the only way I can think of to fix that is to have two different master spreads. So I've got a master spread for I've got a master spread for the left-hand side of the page and one for the right-hand side of the page, the spread. And on the one I've got just the picture on the right, but nothing else. And on the other one I've got the I do have a text frame, but I don't have the picture. So I just select the one I want to apply. If the chapter title's on the right, I apply the right-hand master. If the chapter title's on the left, I apply the left-hand master. But that's a special case where you've got where the picture frame has a text wrap and that it's pushing text away. So it's not, if you've just got it in the top part of your page in a blank space, it will be fine. What else?
Any tips or tricks for including footnotes?
Footnotes. I wasn't going to get to in this tutorial, but it's not super difficult, so I can show you, but I'm going to show you in, okay, I'll show you in my copy rather than this beta copy, because it's just I haven't got the beta copy set up well enough. Let me just make more space. Okay, so it's called Notes, and the panel is called Notes, but to turn it on, you have to look under the window menu, under References. There are a bunch of different types of references that you can have. The ones that you're going to commonly use is Notes and the table of contents. I can show you how to do a table of contents as well. Okay, so we've turned on the notes and it will come up here. I've got so many different panels here that it's quite difficult to find them, but I do know what they are. So here it is. Let's come here and okay, so why? Okay, so because I've placed my cursor and I'm in active text, it shows me that I've got I can insert a note. And there's footnotes, side notes, and end notes. The side notes would go in the margin, not massively useful in a novel, but they have the use case. I've used them in one or two places. And end notes refer to something at the end of the book. I saw someone saying that Discworld fans will like footnotes. Yes, indeed. Okay, so when you've got your active text, it allows you to insert a note. So click that, and it puts a number in the text, and it makes a space for your footnote. So whatever your footnote's going to say, but that's the same size. That looks a bit crap, but that's because it doesn't have a footnote style yet. And so it's just choosing the most obvious style, which is no style. So now we have to go back to text styles and create a footnote style. Again, basing it on body no indent. Create style, give it a name. Give it a Shortcut. Yeah, I mean, shortcuts. Okay, so what am I going to change? I'm obviously wanting to make the size smaller. What else will be useful? Spacing. I don't personally like justified footnotes, so I'll change it to left. I don't want it to be aligned to the baseline, obviously, because it's smaller. I do need to change the spacing. I set it at 7, so let's make the spacing. Actually, I'll just make it default 1. And I don't like hyphenated footnotes, so I'm turning that off. Okay, so now going back to our notes panel, there are a bunch of things we can set up. Okay, so the number format, we can change it if we want. I'm going to leave it. Start numbering at 1. The default where it's going to start restart the numbers every frame. Okay, I personally think that's a dumb default, so I'm going to say I want it to be every story. A story is the block of text that's in a document that's been imported into a document in one go. And you can import extra text to come inside that story, but you have to put your cursor inside the story. I'll show you where you see the end of the story now. Okay, so you set that up, and then you say you want the format, the numbering format doesn't need to have a style, but you want it to be superscript. You can change that to not superscript, but obviously you want it to be superscript. In the note body, you want the numbering style to be the same. You want the number style. You could create a style. There's no need to. You want the note body style to not be body, obviously. You want it to be footnotes. And you can see it changed. But the other things that you also want to fiddle around with, you want it obviously to be at the bottom of the column. You do want there to be a gap of at least a point or 2. If you're going to have multiple footnotes, you may want to set a space in between. You don't have to. You want to allow split notes. If your footnote is very long, you don't want it to get so long that it engulfs your page. So you say allow split notes. I'm not quite sure what pack short notes means, so let's worry about that. You do want a rule. The default is this little short rule that's 1 point. I think 1 point's awfully big. So I make that down to half a point. And I personally want my line to go all the way across my page. But, your mileage may vary. Let's make it 100 just to get us halfway there. And we need to be a little bit longer than 100, about 106. And that's a little bit close to the line. So we want to mince gap before blah, blah, blah. Vertical offset, we want to increase that. That's the offset after the line, or between the line and the note. So let's say like so. And there's our note. And if it was to get very, very long, it would obviously push up the page. And if the note was like if the footnote was right at the end of the page and the note got too long, it would go on to the next page. And that's how you do footnotes.
Any other questions?
And that's pretty simple, actually. That was once they introduced footnotes, I was like, yeah, okay, now I'm buying Affinity, because I had done several books that had footnotes, and that was something that InDesign did, and Affinity at Affinity 1 didn't do footnotes. I'm like, don't really want to not have footnotes, so I held out. What else can I show you that's a little bit more unusual?
There's no questions queued at the moment, but we'll give it a couple minutes. But there's been
Okay.
many comments about how people are now Affinity converts.
Oh, brilliant. That was my main aim. I did want to lure you all to being Affinity users. Good God, what's happened there? Not too sure what's happened there. No idea. Okay, we will put that away and put that away.
All right, last call for comments. Looks like we're getting into the thank you very much. They all love the class. Yes,
Okay,
they
well,
won't be available to the recordings probably won't be available to around the end of the month, and there will be notifications in Discord when they're all ready. Oh, we do have one question.
oh, okay, yes.
Question about bringing in the text. So do you not have to do any editing? They've been doing spelling and grammar checks, etc., before bringing it in.
I don't, because I basically do all that in I do all of that in Affinity itself, because I find the Affinity I find I find Affinity's find and change pretty powerful. I will show you one odd thing about the find and change, is that if you just type in a double quotes, say well, this has already been edited, so it's not really a very good uh, um, it's not a very good. Okay, if you just type in a double quotes and type in double quotes there, it can't find any, because what it's trying to find is those straight quotes. And if you just type it into the find or the change bar, it will default to straight quotes. So when you want to actually change it to proper quotes, you have to type it in the document and copy it from there and paste it in here. I don't know why it does that, but that's the way it does it. It defaults to straight quotes in these kinds of panels, but not in the text. So I mean, I've done. I mean, I had this one fic where I didn't end up printing it, but it did that awful thing of, the curly-headed man and the blonde man, and they were, they clearly knew each other very well. And I just thought, no, I can't with this. So I I did multiple runs of finds and changes to pick up all possible iterations of this blonde man and change him to the person's name. It took a while because there were lots of different ways it was set up, so at the beginning of a paragraph with a full stop, not with a full stop. I did have to fiddle around, but I did manage to do those edits pretty much smoothly. If you're used to editing in Word, do it in Word. I just don't actually like Word. I mean, Word's interface offends me, so I do as little as possible in Word. But by all means, if you're comfortable with Word and you know exactly how to wrangle words, find and change, and how to edit in Word, go for it. I don't think it'll make all that much difference. It should bring your edits through smoothly. I don't see why it wouldn't. I wouldn't do a lot of styling in Word though, because then you get, like, for instance, if you apply the font you want in Word and then you bring it in, I don't know, it just to me seems confusing. So I would do as many line edits as you want, but personally I would do as all the styling and actual formatting I would do in Affinity, because it actually does it well. You don't have to, yeah, it's better. So I would say definitely use that as your default. Do as much editing as you want, but don't start applying styles in Word. It's not needed. That's my opinion. Anything else? Oh, I just want to show you. Where is it? It's oh, for heaven's sake. This I've got to say this where the screen sharing thing that it blocks half the stuff you're doing is a bit annoying. Um, um, there are times when you'll want to have access to be able to make edits to just like one paragraph at a time. Um, and for that you'll want your some extra tools. Um, what the I've lost. Okay, window. You'll want to have your text tools available to you without going to a drop down. So I choose to have my character and my paragraph and my text styles and pinning, which is to do with pictures, and don't worry about pinning at the moment. So I've turned them on, and they will come to they'll stack over here. So in a place where I want to try if I want to tighten the tracking on a paragraph, I would go to character, highlight the where you want to tighten, and then you can see I've actually already tightened here because I was trying to get rid of an orphan line on the following page. So I've tightened it -4%, and you can tighten more. And okay, just by tightening a little bit more, I managed to get rid of that trailing word. I personally don't mind them, but your mileage may vary. And it's now tightened 8%. I would never tighten more than 10%, but I do tighten up to 10%. Or you can loosen, in which case that's not tightened at all. So that's how to get rid of widows and orphans. And you can also you can apply, okay, so this, you're applying styles at the character level here. So say for some reason known only to yourself, you wanted to make that word not be on the baseline. You can move it up. And it will only affect, it isn't applied to the entire paragraph. You're not doing it at a style level, you're just doing it at an actual text level. And similarly for paragraphs. So if you want to shift paragraphs but you only want to apply to this one paragraph, you do it in the paragraph panel rather than editing your style. So if you want something to apply globally, do it at the style level. If you want to make a very small adjustment to just one paragraph or just one character or those kinds of things, do it at the text at this level of characters or paragraphs. There are a bunch of other things that I've got set up here. The glyph browser, which is astonishingly bad in Affinity because it's so teeny tiny and there's no way you can zoom it. So this is how you inspect your entire font to see like if it has any special glyphs. Say you want, I don't know, to use some different break character. Some fonts have some extra break characters built into them. Warnock Pro has some very pretty break characters built in. And in InDesign, you can actually inspect your glyphs in much more detail. But anyway, that's how you inspect the glyphs.
And I think looks like our last question might be, can you say again the lady you spoke of at the beginning of the presentation with the really in-depth videos? What was her name?
Elaine Giles. Elaine Giles. Yeah, she's great. And I mean, if you really want to start doing, like, I mean, for instance, Affinity has this thing called data merge. Now, I never knew what it is, but data merge can, if you, like, for instance, say you're doing a planner and you were doing a page-a-day planner and you want the date on each page. you could go through your planner and write the date on each page, but there's this unbelievably clever thing, which I know how to do, but I can't explain it off the top of my head, where you save data from a spreadsheet and then you put it in this data merge field and you click a button and it generates pages, each with whatever field you want, like the date. I mean, how clever is that? And Elaine Giles can explain those things in extreme depth and clarity. So I highly recommend her videos. There is an Affinity affiliated video maker who's, I'm not quite sure what the videos are called. I personally find her voice exceptionally annoying to listen to, but she's also quite good. I've watched a thing about picture editing. I had to grit my teeth, but she's also pretty good. If you search for Affinity things, she often comes up. I can't listen to her because she's got a very much, she up talks astonishingly, and I just find it annoying. But her tutorials are good if you can get past that, and if it may not irritate you, it irritates me. I'm being very picky. What else? Okay, so in the intermediate class, I will be, well, I was going to cover footnotes, but I probably will again. I'll talk about color quite a bit because there's several quite clever ways that Affinity allows you to pick colors from things in different parts of your screen. And in different places, you can pick colors from photographs, you can make your own colors. That's quite cool. I'll talk about pictures and how to wrap text around pictures in several different ways. I'll talk about how to apply fancy effects to paragraphs like shading text boxes and that, shading and things like that. And I will talk about a few things that I've literally only discovered this week, about different ways you can make color look fancy. So that's what I'm going to do on Monday. So on Monday we'll assume that you know how to do basic layouts. Okay.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much. That was an awesome lesson. Looks like everyone really, really enjoyed it.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. You can, I mean, at any time, don't hesitate to ping me to ask questions, or ping everyone. There's always an Affinity user hanging around that can help you. And if you fancy this, I've done this for a bunch of people, one at a time. Like if you're struggling and you would like me to sort of look over your shoulder while you lay out, and I can help you through your document, we can do that as well. But I'm away for the rest of the month. So, but anytime, and I've done it with a few people, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it, and I think people have found them useful. So if you do find yourself wanting something like that, ping me and we can set it up. Otherwise, I will see some of you next week. And at this point,